What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Wild Game Dynasty podcast. I am your host, Ryan, and today we are diving into one of the most divisive and emotionally charged topics in Michigan wildlife management. That is the possibility of a wolf hunt here in Michigan. Whether you're a hunter, a conservationist, or someone who just loves wolves, this conversation affects all of us who care about Michigan's wild places and the future of wildlife management in our state. Wolves were once completely wiped out from Michigan. Through decades of conservation efforts and legal protections, they've made a remarkable comeback in the Upper Peninsula. But with that success has come conflict. Livestock depredation, pet depredation, concerns about our deer populations, debate about delisting them from the Endangered Species Act, and the question that keeps coming up: should Michigan allow a regulated wolf hunt? This isn't a simple issue. We've got biologists looking at population numbers and carrying capacity. We've got hunters wondering about the impact on deer herds. And we've got people who see wolves as a symbol of wilderness that should never be hunted. Period. Here's the thing. On Wild Game Dynasty podcast, we don't shy away from the tough conversations. We're not here to tell you what to think, but we are here to explore all sides of this issue with the respect and nuance it deserves. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing: a healthy ecosystem, sustainable wildlife populations, and a Michigan we can pass on to our next generation. So, today we're breaking down the science, the emotion, the politics, and the real-world impacts of wolf management in Michigan. Whether you're firmly on one side of this debate or still trying to figure out where you stand, I promise you'll walk away from this episode with a little deeper understanding of what's really at stake here. So, let's get into it. Before we begin, a little biology on wolves, just basic size anatomy here in comparison with a coyote. So, wolves are typically in Michigan 50 to 100 plus pounds. They're averaging around 80 to 90 pounds here in the Upper Peninsula. And compared to a coyote, they're around 25 to 45 pounds. So significantly bigger. The wolf stands about 30 inches tall at the shoulder, and coyotes are about 10 inches shorter than that at the shoulder. They're roughly 20 inches, and with that weight and height difference, it's going to look, well, not that you'd ever see them standing next to one another, but it would look like a wolf is nearly twice the size in bulk compared to a coyote. Wolves, the head and the blocky snouts are what I really notice first when I see them in the wild. And coyotes have more of a slender body, pointed nose. And then the wolf tracks, that's a huge one. And the same with the scat, too. Wolf scat's much larger. But a wolf track is typically 4 inches long, where a coyote track is only 2 to 3 inches. So if you have been in the UP and you are a hunter out in the woods, there's a good chance you've seen them. I don't think in the last at least 5 to 10 years, I don't think there's been a year that I have not seen a wolf in the wild. And that's on the eastern side of the UP where our camp is. And I see them here in Battleground as well. But anyways, a few other quick facts here. Wolves typically reach sexual maturity around 22 months of age, so they're almost 2 years old before they will start reproducing. Mating, same as coyotes, takes place in February, and the pups are born in middle to late April. Usually 4 to 6 pups in a litter, and by the time a wolf is 6 months old, they're nearly as large as an adult wolf. Another fascinating thing about wolves is the significant distances that they can travel. A couple examples of this would be a male wolf that was captured and tagged in Gogebic County, so that's just west of where I am now in Battleground. This was 1999, and that wolf was later killed in Trenton, Missouri in October of 2001. Now, the straight line distance between those 2 points was almost 500 miles. Okay. Another male wolf was incidentally captured by a coyote trapper in Mackinac County. That person released the wolf, and that was in 2020. And shortly after that wolf was released, it was killed less than 7 months later. But not before traveling almost 2,000 miles to Manitoba, Canada. So wolves have, in my opinion, there's no limit to their range. But anyways, let's get to some history. So our history of gray wolves in Michigan, they're native to Michigan, and they once inhabited every county in the state. Now, there's no way of knowing the true number, but prior to the 1800s, it's estimated that there was around 250,000 wolves spread across America. Okay, not just in Michigan, but this is spread across America. And there is a possibility that could have been even upwards of 2 million wolves across the United States. However, their story over the past 2 centuries, it's really one of dramatic decline, followed by a remarkable natural recovery. And it's a narrative that mirrors the broader experience of wolves throughout the Great Lakes region and North America and the extreme controversy surrounding them. As European settlers moved westward in the 1800s, wolves came into increasing conflict with human populations. Settlers hunted the wolves' natural prey, which was the deer, elk, and moose that were found in Michigan, and even woodland caribou. They hunted them for food and sport. Well, this depleted the populations, and it forced wolves to turn to livestock for sustenance. This shift triggered a systematic extermination campaign that would last over a century. A wolf bounty was actually the 9th law passed by the first Michigan legislature in 1838, just 1 year after Michigan gained its statehood. And a wolf bounty continued until 1922, when it was replaced by a state-paid trapper system. The bounty was reinstated in 1935 and repealed in 1960, only after wolves were essentially eliminated from the state of Michigan. There may not be much wolf and human conflict now, and in fact, there's really nothing documented, at least what the media will tell us. But I was able to find there was a story from 1927, and it was actually in Brevoort Township, very close to where our family camp is, and that's, I would say, like half an hour from St. Ignace in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. So a large timber wolf attacked Mrs. Robert Alexander and her children in their home. And that was all that was recorded. And while this specific incident was highlighted in local historical accounts, there is no documented fatal or severe wolf attacks on humans. Now that kind of makes sense because they really haven't been until the last 2-3 decades. They really have become non-existent, as they were nearly extirpated. So there probably wouldn't be the chance of having a wolf conflict. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen in our near future as this wolf population continues to grow. All right, so back to 1838, when Michigan established a state bounty program, and that incentivized ranchers and professional wolfers, is what they referred to as, to kill wolves through poison, traps, and really any other method. The federal government later implemented a nationwide eradication program offering bounties for wolf pelts. The prevailing sentiment of this era was captured by President Theodore Roosevelt himself, who, despite his reputation as a conservation champion, called wolves beasts of waste and desolation. This impact was absolutely devastating. Wolves disappeared from southern Michigan by the 1830s, and the last known wolf den in the Lower Peninsula was actually recorded in 1935. In 1956, the population was estimated at around 100 wolves in several major areas in the UP. By 1960, when the last wolf in the Lower Peninsula was killed in Alcona County, before their modern return, the species had been nearly eliminated from the Upper Peninsula as well. There was only a tiny population that survived on Isle Royale, and that represented possibly one of the last wolf populations in North America during the final stages of the extermination of wolves in the 1960s. So, we had protection and the beginning of the recovering era, which took place in the 1960s, immediately after they were essentially extirpated. So, in a major reversal, Michigan granted wolves endangered species protection in 1965. And that was when there was estimated to be around 6 wolves that were remaining in the UP, plus the small population in Isle Royale. Federal protection followed with the listing of wolves under the 1973 Endangered Species Act. This landmark legislation made hunting and killing of listed species illegal and required the development of recovery plans to guide conservation efforts. An attempt was made in 1974 to accelerate the recovery of wolves in Michigan, and the DNR introduced 4 wolves from Minnesota to Marquette County. And that was the only time that the DNR has ever tried to intervene. So there's a common misconception that the wolves have been planted here, and that's why they're recovering so well. In fact, they were planted, but this was in 1974, and there was only 4 wolves that they planted, and all 4 wolves were actually killed within 8 months. So that was before they were even able to reproduce rather. 2 were shot, 1 was trapped out and then shot, and then 1 was hit by a vehicle. So this failure led the Michigan DNR to abandon intervention strategies, and they simply allowed a natural recovery to proceed at that point. So the natural recovery actually gained momentum in the 1980s when a pair of wolves immigrated from Wisconsin and Ontario into the central Upper Peninsula. And that pair began reproducing in the early 1990s, with the first successful breeding pair confirmed in 1991. And that initiated a steady population increase from that point forward. And by 2010, the population had grown to an estimated 687 wolves. So looking back and reviewing the wolf recovery plan, which was established under the Endangered Species Act, it required the Wisconsin and Michigan population to exceed 100 wolves for 5 consecutive years. And that milestone was actually achieved by 1994. And then 3 years later, in 1997, Michigan developed its own recovery plan, which set a goal of 200 wolves for 5 consecutive years. So Michigan exceeded the 200 wolves by the year of 2000. And from that point forward, from the year of 2000 to 2009, a 9-year period, the population grew pretty steadily, around 11% growth each year. Which is why the population had reached the 687 wolves by around 2010. The winter estimate in 10 years after that, in 2020, was around 695 wolves. The estimated carrying capacity, although this is a bit of a political debate, an opinionated debate at that, the estimated carrying capacity of the Upper Peninsula is somewhere around 600 wolves to 1,350 wolves today. And the 200 wolf minimum, what the DNR is saying, their management philosophy, is that 200 minimum was just a floor, not a target. The DNR aims to maintain a self-sustaining, genetically diverse population above that minimum. It's really important to note that the Upper Peninsula, there is no actual population limit set. The management decisions have become a consideration of public preferences about human-wolf interactions and what the public feels the population should be. So that's kind of where the debate stems from. But anyways, 2009 was an important year to note. It was also the year that Michigan began their 10-year-long predator-prey research study, which the DNR tends to actually use quite a bit to show that wolves don't have a great impact on deer mortality. However, I don't know. I mean, the data doesn't necessarily show that. It kind of shows a different story, and it's hard to accept that data to point for or look for concrete answers. The 2 discrepancies I've kind of noticed with it, and I'll put the link to this study below in the description of the podcast. There was a very small amount of deer collared to study this deer mortality. And if you think about it, over the 10 years, there's 15 counties in the UP, and wolves are found in every county. Now, this predator-prey study was broken into 3 phases, essentially 3 years in each phase. Phase 1 was conducted in Menominee, and a little sliver of the southern portion of Delta County. Phase 2 was conducted in Iron County and a little bit of the western part of Marquette and the southern part of Baraga. And then the third and final phase of the study was conducted very close to the second phase, but Baraga, Houghton, and Ontonagon counties. So it was essentially DMU, if you're looking at the deer management units. It was DMU 55 for study 1, a portion of it anyway, and then a portion of DMU 36 for phase 2, and then a portion of DMU 31 for the wolf study. Now, when wolves are in the entire Upper Peninsula, I find it hard to accept that just those 3 areas of studies to base concrete proof on. The wolves, as we just discussed, have quite a long range. And then the other aspect was the small population of deer that they actually collared and were researching. So each year, essentially, they would collar anywhere maybe from 50 to 100 deer. And they would go to the kill site and determine which predator was responsible for that kill. When you're only taking a small percentage, say the deer herd in the UP is around 200,000 deer, and you're only collaring 50 to 100, I mean, that's well less than 1%. It's not even 0.25%. It's a very small population of the deer that you're analyzing. So it's just my 2 cents. I feel like we could have maybe done better on that for a 10-year study. But anyways, back to 2009 when that study began. We met these recovery goals that really paved the way for delisting. So Michigan removed wolves from the state endangered species list in 2009, and then the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service delisted them federally in 2012, which paved the way for our state's first actual wolf hunt. It's our first and only so far since their protection in the 1960s. So how did our first hunt happen, and how did it occur? Well, in 2012, State Senator Tom Casperson, a Republican out of Escanaba, 38th Senate District, which also includes 12 of the 15 UP counties, introduced the bill to list wolves as a game species. The bill passed the legislature, and then Governor Snyder signed it into law at the end of the year, and that created Public Act 520, which designated wolves as a game species. So after that, the responsibility fell to the NRC to determine whether a hunting season would be appropriate or not, and we've experienced this ever since this occurred, but backlash from anti-hunting groups in Michigan. An organization called Keeping Michigan Wolves Protected, during 2012, they actually came pretty close to halting that hunt, but failed, and the bill moved forward. And then the DNR concluded that a public wolf hunt in 3 specific wolf management units in the UP would reduce human-wolf conflicts without harming the overall abundance of the wolf's population, which was estimated to be around 658 animals at that time. So for the hunt, the quota was set at 43 wolves to be taken by hunters in 2013. And just to put it in perspective, the previous year, the federal government had actually killed 37 wolves in the same areas in response to livestock depredation. So I don't know if that's why the quota was set at 43, but that's what it was. And even though we hadn't had a wolf hunt prior to this, the government was still managing wolves. So they killed 37 wolves in 2012. So anyways, for the 2013 hunt, the state sold 1,200 licenses at $100 a piece, and that was the resident license fee. It was $500 for a non-resident. But only 22 wolves were actually harvested that year, so far less than the 43 wolf quota. And there was a bit of controversy over the harvest. Many believe that anti-hunting groups might have purchased some of those licenses, but we don't know, and we'll probably never know. So, not long after the first wolf hunt, wolf advocates successfully challenged the decision in court, and they were able to restore federal protection on wolves in 2014. So there was a single wolf hunt that was legally allowed to occur in 2013 during that very brief delisting period. Now, in 2020, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service reevaluated the status of wolves. They estimated there to be more than 6,000 in the lower 48s and determined the population had recovered sufficiently. Federal delisting became final on January 4th of 2021, and that transferred full management authority to the state of Michigan. While we were trying to put together a potential hunting season on wolves, in February of 2022, just 1 month after the wolves were removed from federal protection, a federal judge in California reinstated endangered species protections for the gray wolf, laying to rest any debates about whether Michigan would be able to approve a wolf hunt that year. So, which is still the case currently, farmers cannot capture or kill a wolf if it is preying on their animals, and homeowners, pet owners cannot kill a wolf if it is attacking one of their pets. And that action in February of 2022 marked the 6th time, due to lawsuits or threats, that the federal legal status of wolves had changed in Michigan since 2003. So it's constantly been a back and forth system here. As of in 2024, Michigan's wolf population was approximately 768 animals, and that's entirely in the Upper Peninsula. We do not have wolves in the Lower Peninsula that we know of. And then there's a small population on Isle Royale still. It's important to note, too, that there was an incident involving a wolf in the Lower Peninsula in 2024, and that was in Calhoun County. It was a 84-pound gray wolf that was shot and killed, specifically on January 19th, by a guide and a hunter doing a night hunt. It was a guided hunt, and they had mistook a large coyote for a wolf. Had that been a coyote, that probably would have been the state's record. Heck, it might have been a world record coyote. But, it was a bit too big. But the prosecutors did decline charges. They cited it as an honest mistake. And then the Michigan DNR did their own investigation and did confirm the animal was a wild gray wolf through genetic testing, and it was not a hybrid. The mystery origins, well, it remains unclear how the wolf reached southern Michigan. They did say that there was a mark on the foot that suggested maybe it had been trapped previously. So there might have been human intervention with getting that wolf to the Lower Peninsula. Maybe it traveled a long distance from who knows where, but it's something that we will never know. Currently, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources faces the complex task of balancing biological and social considerations. The DNR considers both biological carrying capacity, which is the environment's ability to support wolves with food, water, and habitat, and they are also considering the social carrying capacity, which is the level of human tolerance for the species. The Michigan DNR does say that they would support a wolf hunt. Not that it is their decision at all. It's up to the NRC, the Natural Resources Commission. But the DNR does support the hunt, but they do say that it would take 9 months to put that together. My question is, what would that number be? Would that quota be similar to what we experienced in our first hunt? 40-some wolves, but we'll get to that in a moment. If I want to take a look at the neighboring states, so we weren't the only ones to have a wolf hunt in 2013. The Great Lakes region gray wolves, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan. So those are the 3 states that when these wolves continuously get delisted or relisted, it's referring to those 3 states. So if you take a look at our neighboring states just west of us, for a picture. So Minnesota first. Following the federal delisting in 2012, Minnesota their legislature authorized a wolf hunt after they classified the wolf as a small game animal. Minnesota performed a population survey in 2008, which estimated the population to be around 2,900 wolves, and their target harvest was set around 400 wolves, and it was a lottery system. The 2012 hunt, it was split into 3 territories: East Central Minnesota, Northeast Minnesota, and Northwest Minnesota, and they harvested 413 wolves. So 13 over their target goal. That doesn't seem bad. The subsequent hunts, so 2013, they harvested 238 wolves, and 2014, they harvested 272 wolves. They concluded around 5% of hunters were actually successful during their hunts at actually killing a wolf. Predator hunting, it's incredibly difficult. It's not as easy as people would assume or think it to be. Same with trapping. Now, following the 2021 delisting, when Michigan was trying to put together a wolf hunt, the Minnesota DNR decided not to move forward, and they wanted to update their wolf management plan. It didn't really matter because they ended up becoming, they were relisted once again not long after the 2021 delisting. But anyways, the current wolf estimates in Minnesota are around 3,000 wolves still. That's to this day. So in Wisconsin, the population goal was met in 2004, and by 2012, there was well over 800 wolves when they conducted their first hunt. And in that season, 117 wolves were harvested. In their 2013 season, they had 257 wolves harvested, and 2014, Wisconsin harvested 154 wolves. Now, they are the last of the 3 states to have had a wolf hunt, and in 2021, that hunt drew quite a bit of attention. So the quota was set for 200 wolves to be hunted or trapped, and 119 hunters who applied for the permits, and then they set aside 81 for the Ojibwa tribes under their treaty rights. But since the tribe considers wolves to be sacred, they make a deliberate decision to not hunt them. So the hunt closed in just 3 days. The hunters actually harvested 218 animals. So just based off the speed of the hunt, I mean, the population had obviously significantly increased. But it did draw a lot of heat because they harvested almost 100 wolves more than technically what they were supposed to. But it was really close to the quota because the tribe didn't use their 81 tags. So, like I said, that's why that hunt specifically drew quite a bit of attention through the media. But anyways, the current wolf population in Wisconsin is estimated to be around 1,300 wolves. So now back to Michigan. One of the biggest concerns among the folks that support the management of wolves is their effects on the deer herd in the UP. So, well, what do wolves eat is the better question. In the UP, we don't really have a large livestock herd. There have been some livestock depredation issues in the past, but as of recent, I mean, I think the average is less than 10 annually. Now, there has been an uptick in pets and hunting dogs, wolves attacking them, but not livestock. It's not too much of an issue here in the UP because we just don't have large herds like they do out west. So largely in the Upper Peninsula, we have 2 main targets of prey, and that's white-tailed deer and moose. But the moose herd is it's going down actually, and it's estimated to be less than 400 today, and they're a lot larger animal. So largely, wolves prey on deer, our white-tailed deer herd in the Upper Peninsula, and It's unfortunate because our white-tailed deer herd here in the Upper Peninsula has steadily been declining. Now, it's not entirely caused by wolves. They do play a part in it. How big of a part, we don't know. We all have our opinions on that. But largely our deer herds declining because of habitat loss, food scarcity, and the cyclic nature of harsh winters. But it doesn't disregard wolves from the equation. The wolves in the Upper Peninsula, essentially 75% of their diet is white-tailed deer. Now, it's estimated that wolves, an adult wolf, will consume roughly 20 deer per year. So if Michigan's wolf population currently is at 768 wolves, that would equate to 15,360 deer being consumed annually by wolves. Now, it's also important to note that that doesn't include how many deer the bears are eating, the cougars. I know it's a small population, but we have them. The coyotes and the bobcats. So there's a heavy predation on our white-tailed deer herd, especially with wolves now here in the UP. So let's just say wolves are responsible for 15,000, we estimated, and then let's just say all the other predators in the UP equal to that of the wolves. So that'd be 30,000 deer, and then a hunter harvest of 20,000. That's 50,000 deer, and that's not even including the winter starve-off that's going to be coming this spring, because our winter right now has been absolutely brutal. We just continue to rely so heavily on the resiliency of the white-tailed deer. It just seems like it's a recipe for disaster. But my biggest question is the comparison of wolf populations among 6 different states and the very different approach to these 6 states entailing the gray wolf. Where I'm going with this is the states of Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana, who actively hunt wolves and have management plans and are having a hard time trying to reduce the wolf numbers there. If you want to take a look at the population, so between Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, we have approximately over 5,000 wolves. Now, when you look at the wolf population in Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho, it is literally half of that. It's around 2,500 wolves. I'll break it down for you. The Wyoming wolf population is around 400 wolves, and their management goal is to have only 160 wolves in their trophy game management area, and that's to ensure a minimum of 10 breeding pairs. So that's Wyoming's goals. Montana, their wolf population, it's estimated to be over 1,000 wolves, and they have a target goal of 450 wolves with a minimum of 15 breeding pairs. Idaho's wolf population is estimated over 1,200 wolves, with a current management plan to reduce the population by over 60%. They want to bring it down to around 500 wolves, and technically 350 wolves on the low end during the winter. So you're saying the wolves are on the endangered species list in Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, but how are they not in Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho? Well, that is considered the Rocky Mountain Range wolves. So they're considered, they're all gray wolves, but they're considered a separate population. And that's how they're able to continue wolf management plans and hunting seasons out there. But yeah, my biggest question was what are we doing here? We have 5,000 wolves between Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and these other 3 states to the west of us have half that, and they're actively trying to reduce the number that's half of ours. So I don't know, take it as you may, but it's a bit of a head scratcher for me. So where are we at now? Well, gray wolves in the Great Lakes region, as I just said, remain federally protected under the Endangered Species Act. Their exact legal status, Michigan and Wisconsin, they're listed as endangered, and Minnesota has them listed as threatened. It doesn't matter how they're listed. It's all in all 3 states. It's illegal to kill wolves, whether they are attacking livestock or your pets. The only instance that it is legal is in the direct defense of human life. The legal action. So in December of 2025, just less than 2 months ago, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Pet and Livestock Protection Act. That's House Bill 845. And if that's signed into law, it would force the delisting of wolves and return the management to the states. So what happened was in November of 2025, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they published a review, and they concluded that the wolves in the Great Lakes were biologically recovered. They were genetically diverse, resilient enough to avoid extinction for at least 100 years. So as of 2026, we are awaiting the ruling of that bill, the Pet and Livestock Protection Act, so House Bill 845. It was primarily sponsored by Rep. Lauren Boebert. She's a Republican out of Colorado. And it was co-led by Rep. Tom Tiffany, a Republican out of Wisconsin. There is 37 co-sponsors on that bill. The one representing Michigan was Rep. Jack Bergman from Michigan, was one of those 37 co-sponsors. So they voted on the bill December 18th of 2025, and that sent the bill to the Senate. It passed by a pretty small margin. It was 211 votes to 204, and it's currently the 119th Congress. What happens now? Well, the Senate read that bill twice, and then they referred the bill to the Committee on the Environment and Public Works, and that is currently right now where the bill is sitting. So what does that mean? And when will the bill get passed, and who is this Environment and Public Works Committee? Well, the long story short, there's no actual mandatory voting deadline. There is absolutely no hard deadline for the Senate to vote on any of the House bills, including our House Bill 845. So progress, it really depends on the Senate's leadership, their schedule, the calendar, all the above. Unfortunately, since there is no mandatory voting deadline, with the 119th Congress lasting until January 3rd of 2027, if the Senate doesn't ever vote on that bill by the end of this session, then the bill would die. So that's where it's at now. What is the Committee on Environmental Public Works? That's, it's obviously a Senate committee. It's composed of 19 senators. 10 of those are Republican and 9 are Democrat. So there is a majority there. However, 0 of those 19 senators are from Michigan, Wisconsin, or Minnesota. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is what it is. This committee, the Environment and Public Works Senate Committee, their jurisdiction includes fisheries and wildlife, among 16 other subjects like water, air, noise pollution, stuff of that sort. So that's why the bill is with that Senate committee right now, because it's essentially their jurisdiction. So they can either approve the bill, deny the bill. Either way, we're waiting for them to hopefully approve it, and then that would bring it to the Senate floor, and then the bill can be voted on and discussed. Concluding thoughts here, just looking at history, I can't see us not having continued legal battles in court, no matter what happens with the Senate ruling, whether they pass the bill or not. The way I look at it is the blockades that they're put forth every time. So we come to the conclusion that wolves, they've achieved a sustainable population, and now they can be removed from an endangered species list. Anti-hunting groups shut it down, and they do a pretty good job at it. The optimal goal number for wolves, it continues to increase. They keep moving that goalpost forward and decisions are just seemingly being made based off of non-scientific evidence, but rather public perception and what the public feels the number should be. I find it's really unfortunate because we as hunters we're outnumbered. We are largely outnumbered by non-hunting and anti-hunting populace. Hunter voices are really the last thing we have. It's declining year after year in Michigan, even more so with our trapping community. If you take a look at our numbers in respect to the overall populace, it's a pretty grim result. Licensed hunters in Michigan always hover lately around 500,000 to 600,000. It varies each year. So that really only represents about 5% of Michigan's population. So you got 95% of the state that's not really involved with hunting. The trapping numbers are far worse. It's approximately 30,000 licensed trappers in our state, and the DNR estimates that really only half of those licensed trappers actually partake in the sport of trapping. I mean, we're just simply outnumbered. And on top of being outnumbered, hunters are almost their own worst enemy. There's so much disagreement amongst the hunting community alone. So until that's really figured out and hunters can come to agree on really essentially anything that is pro-hunting, it's going to be a long road ahead. The other unfortunate thing is just the divide. I mean, one side will absolutely say no to any form of hunting. And no one's, because they're afraid that it will lead to extermination again. But that's just absolutely nowhere near the case. And no one is willing to accept that. They're just trying to manage them. No one wants them to disappear ever again, especially the hunting community. Whether you look at hunting and trapping as a sport or not, it really holds little ground in my point of view. From the opposing point of view, they view hunting as a sport or it's a trophy hunt. And that argument's kind of based off of modern society with technology and grocery stores. Why do we really need to hunt anymore? Sure, in the past, hunting was survival and it provided sustenance. It's how people ate and got their own groceries. But we don't need that anymore. We have grocery stores. And sure, I mean, some may hunt for so-called trophies, making it more of a sport. But the majority of hunters, in my opinion, do not fall in that category. The majority are in it for the food source. They're in it for the rich culture and the experience. And to be honest, I mean, I don't even see hunting as much of a sport. I mean, technology is progressed so much. We have high-powered rifles, heated blinds, trail cameras we can watch via our cell reception. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all for it. But to me, hunting is simply a right. And I think that's the key argument there. It doesn't matter what way you look at it. Oh, it's a sport. It's not a need. It's not a necessity. Okay, who cares? It's simply a right. It's a right to have an opportunity to harvest, wild, organic, nutrient-dense protein sources. Well, you don't eat wolves. Okay, why should you hunt them? Well, that's also a right. It's a right to harvest fur-bearing animals. It's not only a right, it's an absolute responsibility as stewards of the land to help manage our natural resources and help maintain a balanced ecosystem. We are very, very much a large part of our environment, and we play a vital role in ensuring healthy populations among our natural resources. I'd like to also note that no animal that has ever been managed through hunting has ever become extinct. And you can even look at our current example of wolves with Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. They're even having difficulty trying to reduce the number of wolves to a healthier population to form a more balanced and healthy ecosystem for their wildlife. Managing our wildlife, it simply reduces human conflict and it maintains a healthy ecosystem. It would be a much healthier result if the managing was placed in the hands of the hunters rather than the government, no matter how difficult that pill may be to swallow. Another thought that I've had is when wolves have been restored to a healthy population, I would think if you can remove an animal from the endangered species list, you'd be throwing a party, something, anything, a national holiday. I mean, only 3% of the 2,300 species on that list ever get removed from it. So, I mean, that's one incredible feat. So what's going on there? The exact opposite continues to occur, where the second an animal is deemed recovered, the anti-hunting groups want to immediately put it back on that list. And that's just not what the Endangered Species Act was intended for. It's become a complete political power move. I also think there's a lack of transparency too. It's a big, large contributing factor for the public perception on the DNR. And I mean, I get it. It's not easy. It's a very difficult task for the DNR to make recommendations on such a controversial game animal, especially with the political environment kind of breathing over their shoulders. But to an extent, they're doing the best they can with the resources given to them. But, to be honest, in the end, they simply just take orders. Those at the top of the governmental hierarchy are running the operation. It's very unfortunate because politics, money, and power should absolutely never play a factor in the management of wildlife. Do I think we should get rid of wolves completely? No, absolutely not. I mean, I see that as an act of God, completely and entirely extirpating a species. We're supposed to be stewards of the land and managing the natural resources God put before us. With that said, we also very much need a wolf hunt. They're a natural resource that should be managed. I think God put humans in charge for a reason. Me personally, I love wolves. I think they're awesome to view. I also can't wait at the opportunity to harvest them and play my role in managing our natural resources. I've got half a dozen MB750s sitting on the wall in my workshop, and they're just collecting dust. Hoping someday I get the chance to pull them off the wall and partake in a Michigan wolf harvest, but who knows when that'll happen. The Senate could technically pass the bill tomorrow, but I could also win the lottery tomorrow, and I'm not counting on that. So that's where we're at. That's where I'm at, and that's all I got. So anyways, thanks to all our listeners, and thanks for joining in on this conversation. One more thing before I go. If you are interested this weekend, there is an event that the Upper Peninsula Sportsmen's Alliance is holding. It's their quarterly meeting, and that's in Marquette on February 14th, 2026. And it is at the North Center at 10 a.m. Because of the size, the venue is going to be open to the public, so everyone is welcome. Pro-wolf, anti-wolf, doesn't matter. You're all welcome, and they will be discussing the progress in delisting the wolf in the Upper Peninsula. If you're interested in that, the Sportsmen's Alliance quarterly meeting, February 14th at the North Center in Marquette at 10 a.m. Anyways, thanks again for listening, and make sure you click subscribe so you get notified every time we launch a new episode. Until next time. See you later.
This podcast is brought to you by Wild Game Dynasty, a professional hunting outfitter and guide service. If you're looking for a world-class adventure in Michigan's premier outdoors, look no further. Book your guided hunt now with Gary Morgan at wildgamedynasty.com. This episode is also brought to you by GMK Logging. With GMK, your property can be transformed into a deer hunter's paradise, giving you a huge bump in success and real estate value. Give Greg Compo a call for a no-risk, no-cost assessment at 989-213-6499. Michigan Brand. Michigan Brand is a third-generation family-owned and operated business out of mid-Michigan. They are known for their world-famous hams, jerky, and various sausage products. You can find Michigan Brand all over the state of Michigan, as well as other states throughout the U.S. Check them out at michiganbrand.net. That's michiganbrand.net to learn more.